Hey everybody, I wanted to make a little bit of a video as I was out here messing around under the hood of the Blazer, trying to clean up a little bit of the wiring, because it literally was a horrible rat's nest, and it still has portions that I have to loom up for the MAF sensor and maybe a couple of little wires coming out of the main harness. But what I did was clean up a bunch of the wiring that was just loose between the computer and the firewall. Got it kind of acceptable, got everything loomed that I had the loom to loom, because I ran out of that real small, what I call single wire loom. So I got a red wire back there that looks pretty naked, but it's not offensive. But what I did was, I have actually the wiring harness that I had purchased from Richard has this like fuse block. Get this thing out of the way so you can see it. Butthead. Look here. Anyway, has that little fuse block that has it's listed as starter, constant, ignition. So you got ignition. This would be a constant power, and that would be a starter if you were using this circuit to control your actual starter. But on my swap, I just left my normal ignition switch in charge of the starter on this thing, and I left the fuse out of that port. So, but that thing was just kind of laying, I guess, loose, and it just basically was just on top of the computer, which absolutely looked horrible. Plus it opened up opportunities for that to come unplugged or pull a wire loose or something weird like that. So I got all those things, made to length, and then mounted it to the inner fender there with a screw. So it's good and solid. It's got the, I hope, the way it's mounted and the way that top cover snaps on, that it's fairly water resistant. I'm not going to say it's waterproof, but I think it's in pretty good shape. And then I used to have my computer sitting upside down, but I decided that just looks bad. I don't like it. So my new technique is to take this, set it on the brake proportioning valve. If you wiggle it just right, it sets right there. Which, once I get my loom on these two ground wires, because both of these wires are just grounds. These are actually those two ground wires that the tuner, the guy that flashed my PCM, had us add to this to try to fix those problems that we were having in the beginning. And neither one of those fixed the problem, because it was a flashing error, not that. So I basically just had these two wires that originally was connected to my alternator bracket, because there's two little 10mm bolts here you can use for grounds. So I just had them run over there and grounded, but it looked like, booty hole. So I was like, oh well, I don't want to leave that over there. But I also didn't want to have to pull this out and pull the pins out, because I don't have the little tool that Richard has on his work truck to unpin these two wires. So it wasn't hurting anything when I had it grounded over there. So I just went ahead and ground them over here to the inner fender well with a little self tapper, which, once I get a little loom on there and kind of do a wire tuck, you probably won't see them or notice them anyway. And then I'll, of course, have the option later, whenever I get Richard to come by with his little tool or a small enough pick, I guess. I think you can push those pins out if you get a small enough pick on there. So anyway, that's what I've been doing today, is just kind of trying to get my Tach mounted up, because I found out the Tach I have will work with the LS engine. That is another video that I wanted to make separate from this one. I did a lot of research. Here's what's weird. you do a lot of research to find out what do you have to do to hook up a regular old school Tach to an LS computer. The information you find online is really misleading, because you'll find one person who tries to hook up a Tach, it won't work. Like, they hook all the wires up. You know, you got your Tach lead, your light, your ground, your constant, you know, your 12-volt ignition power. Everybody hooks up the Tach, it won't work. So then you see these videos where people are like, oh, well, that Tach won't work because the output of the PCM has a 5-volt. It's like a 5-volt Tach signal, and it's not strong enough for your tachometer. So then you got to buy, like in these videos, you have to buy this little like diode resistor looking thing that has like 1,000 K whatever, quarter amp, I don't know, and you got to wire in a separate 12-volt source to boost the signal of your Tach to make your Tach work. Well, just in case you're, you know, hopefully you guys aren't too confused at this point. Well, for every one of those people who couldn't get it to work and then had to add this 12-volt, you know, resistor or dioded wire to get it to work, you'll have just as many people that are like, well, I just hooked up the wires like I always did and it works fine. I think that I figured out the problem. If your tachometer doesn't have the switchable option to go between 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, and 8-cylinder, somehow that plays a part in it. That little switch on the back of the Tach has to be directly related to whether you have to change your input or not. Now, whether it's 5-volt, 12-volt, I don't know for sure. All I can tell you is this. I have an old school SunTac 2 that I've used several times over in different vehicles. It does have the switch on the back for 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, or 8-cylinder. And when I first hooked it all up, I just hooked it up underneath the hood because I wanted to see if it worked before I went through the trouble of trying to route my Tach signal wire and all that and make it look good. I hooked it all up. Lo and behold, that Tach didn't do anything. Light lit up. You know, I put power to the light, it lit up. I made sure I had a good ground, good power source. I was like, well, maybe I am gonna have to do that stupid diode trick. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, wait a minute, I think I either read read online or saw a video that said something about put it on 4-cylinder and it'll work. I'm like, well, it ain't gonna hurt nothing to try. So I clicked it over to 4-cylinder, and lo and behold, it worked perfect. The idle was at the, you know, I mean, I know what idle I selected and set it at when I did my tune. Idle was fine. Red, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's the most fast responding Tach, because that old SunTac 2 seems like that engine might rev a little quicker than that arm moves, but it's a pretty close representation of what kind of RPM you're turning. So for all those people out there that were wondering, all you have to do is hook that old school Tach up and put it on 4-cylinder and it works. Now, I don't know if that has a direct relationship to what's, you know, this 2000 computer, you know, maybe this on the newer models, maybe it's different, you know, I don't know. I'm just saying that on this 2000 Tahoe computer, it works fine. Literally just, you know, black is ground, red is ignition 12-volt source, white is for your light, and then green is of course your Tach signal. Hook all those up, set your Tach on 4-cylinder and run it down the road because it works. So that's what I've been doing today. Testing and researching, trying to figure out what's going to work and what won't on that stupid tachometer. And then during the process, I always get sidetracked, and I end up getting sidetracked trying to make the engine bay look a little bit cleaner, because it just, you know, looks like I never did finish it because I never did. So imagine that. So anyway, tomorrow's Memorial Day. I'll probably be out here messing with the car some more because I'd really like to get my windshield wipers working. But again, I got sidetracked with this whole idea of having a tachometer so that I could monitor my RPMs going down the highway. So I don't know, maybe sometimes my priorities aren't exactly in order, but I was really happy to find out I could use that stupid tachometer that I've had forever, because originally I was just going to wait and get one of those digital like clusters. I think it's Innovate or Innovative, I don't know. Look them up on eBay. They sell like for $150. You can get it like a digital dash insert. Does not match your factory gauges. You'll have to make a plate, but it gives you all your digital gauges, from your oil pressure to your electronic speedometer, on like this T5 is electronic speedometer, Tach, all that good crap. So anyway, that's where I'm at now, trying to get in here under the dash and convince myself to keep going, because I absolutely hate wiring. As you know, my right arm doesn't work more than about 60%, and it doesn't work the 40% that I want to use it the most. And when you're doing wiring and connectors and stuff with 1.5 hands, it tests your patience and makes you want to quit doing it. But if you don't at least keep trying, you never get there. So knock on wood or plastic, this thing will be good and ready to run down the road probably tomorrow morning. So appreciate you guys watching. I hope that was a little bit informative about hooking up a Tach on an LS engine, and I'll probably make this like a part 1, and then I'll make another video from inside the cab that basically talks about the same dumb thing. So anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. You guys have a safe and enjoyable Memorial Day.